Hi, I'm Bijan from Product Management Exercises, where you prepare for your PM job interviews. And today we're going to go over how to answer an estimation question in a PM job interview. Estimation questions are designed to evaluate your quantitative and problem solving skills. The interviewers want to see that you're able to do quick math to come up with a reasonable estimate on the size of an opportunity, potential impact of a project, or cost of a project. To answer an estimation question, you usually have to come up with a few formulas and make a few assumptions. It's important to know when to make an assumption about a number versus trying to calculate it using some new formulas. We'll talk more about this shortly. Here's how you answer an estimation question. Step 1. Clarify the scope of the question. This is your chance to narrow down the scope of the question by asking a few clarification questions. Let's say you were asked to estimate the bandwidth for Gmail. You'll want to know if you're estimating the daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly bandwidth. And let's assume that you're estimating the daily bandwidth for a question. Next step is creating the main equation. You will need a main equation that will help you calculate the number that you're looking for. This equation will be the foundation of your estimation. In our Gmail example, let's say our main equation is daily bandwidth equals to number of active Gmail accounts times average daily bandwidth per active Gmail account. Now that we know our main equation, let's estimate each parts of the equation, which brings us to step 3, break down the unknowns into simpler equations. When you have unknown inputs in an equation, you'll want to calculate them by breaking them into simpler equations. In our Gmail example, our unknowns in the main equation are the number of active Gmail accounts and the average bandwidth per active Gmail account. To find the number of active Gmail accounts, we need a new equation, which is the number of active Gmail accounts equals to number of active Gmail users multiplied by average number of Gmail accounts per active user. You can take a similar approach to develop a new equation for the bandwidth per Gmail account. We can say average daily bandwidth per Gmail account equals to number of emails viewed or sent per day multiplied by average size of an email. You'll continue the breakdown of an equation into simpler ones until you reach a point where you can make reasonable assumptions on the unknowns and don't need to break down an unknown into more equations. For the total number of Gmail users, let's say that it is the total number of American Gmail users multiplied by 5. You might ask, well, the number 5 is certainly an assumption, and you're right, but it's a reasonable assumption given the population of the US with access to the internet is about 250 million, and the population of the world with the access to the internet is about 2 billion. And given that Americans have higher internet speed and better phones and use Gmail more than developing countries, we can assume a multiplier of 5 rather than 8 to estimate the total number of Gmail users around the world. Remember that while this number might not be correct, we took the right steps to estimate this number, and this is what the interviewer wants to see. Now let's go back to the equation and assume that there are a total number of 100 million users in the US with Gmail accounts, which is a reasonable estimate when you consider that many people in the age group of 0 to 16 or over 60 don't have a Gmail account, and some have other services such as Hotmail and Yahoo. You can do a more accurate estimation here by guessing the probability that a person in a particular age group has Gmail and multiply that percentage by the population in that age group, add the number of Gmail users in each age group, and you will have the total number of Gmail users in America. But I think you'll be okay to just assume 100 million users here. Now, we can assume that the total number of Gmail accounts per user is 1.5 to account for the fact that some users have multiple accounts and have also corporate accounts that are using Gmail. We can also assume that one person sends or receives 5 emails per day. This is again an assumption and should be communicated to the interviewer. You can even ask the interviewer if they'd like to see a more accurate estimate on this number, and if they do, break down the users by the user groups based on frequency of usage, estimate the number of email reads and sends per day for each user group, and add up those numbers to calculate your average number of emails per account per day more accurately. Finally, let's assume that each email is about 1 megabyte on average. And this is again an assumption you must communicate it to the interviewer. If they want to see do you make a more accurate estimate on the email size, you can break down the emails by types, such as the ones with attachment and the ones without, and make a more accurate estimation. The important note to remember here is that by breaking down the main equation step by step, you finally come to an equation that can be calculated with some meaningful assumptions. Now we've arrived to step 4, which is calculating the numbers. After explaining the unknowns and your logic for how you will calculate them using the new formulas that you've come up with, go back to your formulas and replace the unknowns with your assumptions and calculated numbers until you calculate the number that you were asked to estimate. For our Gmail example, let's work our way backwards to calculate the daily bandwidth for Gmail. We know number of Gmail accounts is equal to 100 million, which is population of the American Gmail users, multiplied by 5 to account for the world population, times 1.5 accounts per user, which gives us 750 million. We also know that the average daily bandwidth per active Gmail account is estimated to be 1 megabyte multiplied by 5 emails per day, which is 5 megabytes per day. Multiply 5 megabytes by 750 million, and you have your number 3.75 petabytes per day of daily bandwidth. Now, let's complete our last step, which is step 5, do a sanity check. A sanity check is a quick way to ensure that you're within the ballpark and are not completely off. Ask yourself, is this final estimation logical or does it make sense? For example, if your estimate for Gmail bandwidth came out to be 100 gigabytes, it's probably wrong and you will have to double check your calculations. Thank you for watching this video. For more videos, check out our YouTube channel. If you're preparing for a PM job interview, check out our website for a list of over 1,000 product manager interview questions at productmanagementexercises.com.